what I want.
All right, now it's 3:30. Now we can't talk about coffee anymore.
Oh no.
Okay.
So if you want to answer what city you live in and what your favorite coffee drink is, you can put that in the chat. Otherwise, we're going to get started talking to you about Make Do. If you couldn't tell by my beautiful hat, but that's what we're here to talk about.
And we're here to talk about hands-on experiential learning. If you're here, hopefully it's because you liked the sound of our session. We're here talking about how kids and schools have changed, and we want to bring that hands-on learning and agency and equity and curiosity and getting kids moving back into the classroom, because we all lost a little bit of that during the COVID pandemic when students had to stay at their desks or were at home. And so we've been thinking a lot about getting that back into the classroom and talking about what that's like in a post-COVID world. So we're going to be talking about that and about Make Do. But before we start, we should probably introduce ourselves. My name is Sarah Fitzhenry. I'm the Education Community Officer for Make Do. I was a teacher librarian for preschool through 8th grade for 10 years. And I'm lucky enough in my role at Make Do to still teach a middle school course with Make Do and robotics. And so I was a teacher, am a teacher, all the teacher things. And my wonderful job is to connect educators around the world who love working with Make Do and teaching in that hands-on creative way.
Once a teacher, always a teacher, Sarah.
It's so true.
I have taught, I'm Colleen Graves, and I also am I wanted to say like recovering teacher. I don't know why. But I taught for 16 years as an English teacher and as a librarian. So I've taught all the grade levels, and middle school's still my favorite. So shout out to my middle school peeps, especially if it was your last day of school, because it was probably crazy.
Yeah.
So no more big back, no more Sigma, no more brain rot for the for the summer. And my job is to be our education content officer. So because I've taught so many different age levels, and I also wrote some makerspace books, I just make all of our lesson plans and all of our ideas and kind of our content strategy to move us into the space of education. So I've had a really fun time creating lots of great lessons, and we'll talk about some of those today.
And hopefully you're here for cardboard collaboration, reclaim hands-on experiential learning with Make Do, because that's what we are gonna talk about. So here is what our hour is gonna look like today. Meet your presenters. We already did that. You are gonna meet Make Do. We're gonna talk about what is hands-on experiential learning. So if those are new terms for you, great. We're gonna talk about what that is. Then we're going to talk about teaching with Make Do and bring it all together. Hands-on experiential learning, teaching with Make Do, how does that work? We always want to give you some real examples that you can really use. The best webinars are and sessions are when you walk out and you're like, oh, I'm going to use this in my classroom tomorrow. So that is our goal, to make this worth your time. And then we always have time for questions, and we have some stuff for you in your take-home folder, which means you can spend some time with it later if you'd like. If you are like me and love to be on slides, clicking things while you are looking through them, Sarah is going to send the link to the chat so that you can join us. If you just want to watch, these slides aren't going anywhere. You can look at them later. You can sit back and relax while we talk to you. But you can't relax too much, because we are going to ask you to participate in this webinar. Again, you are working with 2 teachers here. We can't just talk to an empty room. So please use the chat. We want to know what excites you about hands-on experiential learning. Maybe you saw the title of this webinar and you were like, ooh. If so, we want to know what that was, and we'll watch the chat for a little bit. What excites you? Oh, hi, Sarah Reynolds. Another Sarah. There's 3 of us now.
No, that's still me.
Oh, Sarah. Sarah.
I just always assume there's a lot of Sarahs.
We are a mighty crowd.
We are. That's true. So if you just joined us, we are asking to send to the chat what excites you about hands-on experiential learning.
I am going to say mine out loud, even though I typed it in the chat, just because I taught reading first. That was my first love. Well, obviously I was a librarian, so I guess it's still my love. But when I taught reading, one thing I learned about teaching kids to read that I thought was really important was the think aloud process. And so what excites me about hands-on learning is it's a magical thing. They all start thinking aloud. So it's not something that you like teach kids to do. It's something you do when you're like modeling how to read. But it's interesting that they all do it when they're doing hands-on projects. All the thoughts that they're having start coming out, and it's all because they're collaborating and working on something in front of each other.
That's awesome. I added that I love that hands-on experiential learning gives different learners a chance to shine. As a kid who's not a great test taker and who maybe did not get the best grades, this kind of learning was where I could step up and be like, see, I'm smart. I can do it. I get it too. And I really loved that feeling.
I
Oh
love
my gosh.
Mariam's answer about being a tactile learner, like she loves to do and
Mhm.
not just learn how to do. And
Love that.
the other Colleen, I'm so excited. Hello, other Colleen. Uh, Kids feeling more agency in their learning. I think that's
Love
definitely
that.
really
Mhm.
something great to have. Oh,
Kathy, take
Kathy's.
students in so many thought directions. Love
Mhm.
that. All right, we also want to give a little bit of time to the flip side because it is not all excitement and positivity, and we know that. So, what scares you a little bit about hands-on experiential learning? Maybe you're here for a little bit of a, I don't think I want to do that, but I'm going to watch and see if maybe I want to. Um, what scares you? If you're still sending your excitement, great. If you have a fear that you have been like waiting to share, if you are feeling a little reluctant, share it with us in the chat. This is a good space to share that. Oh, Tiara, about excite when students learn through experience, it helps them to remember the material better. Some of you have, it's like you've peeked at our slides. I love when that happens. Colleen has some feelings about the mess, which is very real. If you have been personally victimized by the mess of project-based learning, please raise your hand. Because I feel a little bit
Please
like I have. Yes.
never,
Sarah
ever,
has too.
ever ask me about the time that I was having a Maker Monday and I decided to decorate cupcakes with middle schoolers. Please never ask me about this.
I won't.
I, s-
I
I
won't do
still
that.
have nightmares to this day.
All right, we're going to let that chat keep rolling. So please feel free to keep answering. But thank you to those of you who sent some answers to the chat and got us rolling. That's why we're here. We're here to connect. I am not here to hear myself talk for an hour, and neither is Colleen. We talk to each other plenty. We are here to hear from you. So please use the chat, talk to us. It makes the webinar infinitely more interesting. So let's introduce you to Makedo. In case you are not familiar with Makedo, we are cardboard construction tools or tools for kids for cardboard. And we are loved by kids and adults all around the world, about 2.3 million kids and adults around the world. Our company is based in Australia. So if this video were playing with sound right now, you would hear some really charming Australian accents, but we have it on mute so that we can talk to you. If you're interested in seeing this video and learning more about Makedo and education, you can click on it if you're on the slides or visit our website. It's there. But what you need to know about Makedo overall is that our tools work with upcycled cardboard and other recycled materials. And with these tools, kids can build anything from a flower to a fort or a mask to a maze, think big or small. We're going to tell you a little bit more about all of this, but Makedo are little tools that can make really, really big projects come to life. Am I forgetting anything, Colleen?
You got it.
All right. So here's an overview of the system. And Colleen is actually, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment so that you can see her screen. You can pin it on yours because I can show you this system and that's one thing, but we really want you to see these tools in action because that's where the magic is. So I'm going to stop sharing and Colleen is going to give you a view of these tools live.
Now I'm a hands model. So this is our safe saw. It is rated. You can see it says 5 on it, but it's actually safety rated ages 3 and up. You cannot cut yourself, and that's because this actually tears through the cardboard. So the way that it works is you're going to want to saw down. So I'll say that you're always going to see kids who try to do this, and that's not going to work. And the other thing that you have to do that I can't really show you how to do from here is that you kind of have to stand up. It's one thing I tell students to do to get a good grip, but also to like push down, and you saw right through. There's nothing more terrifying than sawing through cardboard live on screen. That's with the big side. The little side you can actually use to make some details. So I like to try to cut like a little eyeball or tongue out with that one. So I can make an actual curve, which is pretty cool. And then you have the pokey side. So this is all from the safe saw. I'm going to move the safe saw over just so I can grab my screwdriver. I also have a pokey side. And on the pokey side, what you're going to do is you're going to push through to make a pokey hole. I like to use a roll of tape. I have a really small one here today, but you could use a roll of tape just to give yourself some strength to push through. So then that gave me a nice hole. And then you're going to take what is actually my favorite part of the tools, which is a screw, and it connects right onto the end of that screwdriver, and you can just screw your cardboard together. We also have this amazing mini tool, about the same as my washi tape. I really like the mini tool. I'm going to show you a really cool trick with it. But the mini tool will allow you to actually get into really hard to reach spaces if you're doing a project in a different, what is it? If you have like a really small spot where you can't get through. But I actually thought it would be really fun to show you today that I can actually make. Actually, let me try to keep my cardboard pieces together. I'm going to use my really big screw, my other screw. So I have a short screw and a long screw. So it's called a screw and a screw plus. You can see they're longer. The screw is supposed to go through 3 pieces, and a screw plus is if I want to go through 4 pieces. And I'm trying to actively show you how to make a ball really fast with all my tools. So did I make it? I didn't. All right. I was like, I did it. I was successful. It's not a beautiful ball because I didn't actually roll my cardboard very well. But oh, I didn't get through that last one. Hang on.
You are seeing the engineering design process live on this call. If it doesn't go perfectly the first time, what I love about Makedo is you take it out and you try
I
it
was
again.
gonna say that's actually really my favorite thing too. There we go. I got it. So now it's all connected and pop that off, and I've made myself a little ball to play with. Whoop, whoop. All right. So that is the regular screw. That is the longer screw that I went through 4 pieces of cardboard with to make my rolling like a ball. And then actually, this is a new tool. It's one of my favorite tools. And Sarah, I think we talked about this yesterday. Some people might have seen the older tool. It was like a black saw. These are the new tools, so they've been updated. And this is my favorite. It is the fold roller. So the fold roller makes these nice scoring marks, and you can use it to like make a fold. In fact, I might want to use it to, make this like a ledge. I could take a little L bracket and make a ledge. But you can also use it if you want to use it with your students, especially your little, you can use it as a way to figure out where you want to saw. So then it's just going to actually make it a little bit easier to cut through that cardboard. So the main tools that come in the Invent are these 3 big tools: the safe saw, the screwdriver, and the fold roller. And then my other favorite tiny little tool is the mini tool. And then you get these great screws. Now, we're eventually going to update our education pack to also have these beautiful bags. So these will be there for you as well. Did I forget something? I actually was going to show you one other thing, Sarah.
Oh, I was popping the slide back up to show them the
Wow.
new
I know.
additions to our family.
I got the roto ring. I was going to show it.
Oh, okay.
It's
Okay.
just
I'll stop. I got overexcited.
The roto
Sorry.
ring is not currently in the Invent, but it is really cool. So the roto ring allows you to make spinny things. So I actually brought my eyeballs here that are already done. But what's
Jump
cool
scare.
about these, jump scare you. What's cool about it is you can take it and you basically have to like poke the holes. I'm not going to do that one live because that one will stress me out live. But if you take 2 roto rings together and we take our screw and then we screw this in, doo, doo, doo. Now I actually have this really cool moving piece, right? So that's a really fun new tool. And then the spin hinge, you can show the new one. Spin hinge comes out next week, but the rotor
So
ring's already out.
exciting.
And it
Let me
allows you
show
to
you the
just
spin hinge.
add cool movement.
There we go. So the rotor ring allows you to add movement, and so does the spin hinge, which is really exactly what it sounds like. It is a hinge that will allow you to rotate and open. You can go 365 degrees with that. We also have screw dots, which come in multiple colors, and they're little caps that go on the screws, which will allow you to add extra color and dimension to your creations. So the Makedo family is growing, always growing, but these are the main tools that we wanted to make sure that you know. Now, that is a lot to remember. So, in case you're thinking, this is great, I already forgot all of it, we have this link here that you can come back to later. We've got this YouTube playlist that shows you what all the tools are and all of the different ways to use them, tips and tricks that you need to know. So, when you go through the slides, this link is here. It will take you to the YouTube channel so you can look through and get kind of the behind the scenes and the deeper look at all of the tools. And it says here, check your take home folder. At the end of the slides, you'll see the take home folder with lots of resources too.
I can't remember if you have a slide in there that shows the invent kit,
Nope.
but we do have the invent kit has like what is it, 20% off right now?
Yes, there's a special sale
Yeah.
going on right now.
And the invent kit is our perfect classroom kit. It has, I'm trying to look it up because I forgot. I think it's 7 of everything. Why is it so hard to do things on the fly? Make, do, invent, kit.
Colleen, why don't you
Okay,
send that to the
I got it.
chat? I'm looking at
I will.
the time and I want to keep
Yeah.
going. So
I was
let's
just,
chat. Uh-huh.
yeah, you got it. Go.
Okay.
Woo.
Let's talk about hands-on experiential learning. We are not the experts in hands-on experiential learning. In fact, some of you may know more about it than we do. We're just going to give an overview so that if you're new to it, it gives you just enough of a taste to be really interested. And if we're missing something or you have something to share or something that you really want to add, please, please, please use the chat. You don't teach for as long as Colleen and I have without knowing that people in the room know more than you do. We want to hear your input. So please add anything that you think of. So let's start with a big overview. What is hands-on experiential learning? And it really is exactly what it sounds like. It's learning by doing, by experiencing, and by actively engaging with the world around you. If you think about when you were a kid and learning about gravity in a book versus learning about gravity by jumping off of a swing set and hitting the ground really hard, both different ways to learn about gravity, but you probably remember them differently. So hands-on experiential learning is about moving beyond just listening and just reading and diving into direct personal involvement. I want to make sure that I say there is nothing wrong with reading and listening. Those are really strong, important pedagogical concepts. But today we're here to talk about hands-on experiential learning. So I do not mean to talk down to reading and listening. We're just here to talk about this really specific concept today. Colleen, do you want to talk a little bit about your favorite project?
Yeah, I was gonna say I wanted to talk about learning about force in motion with marble runs because I remember seeing when marble runs were becoming popular, and I was like, why is this such a big deal? And then I made one of those pegboard walls where you play with the marble run and you move the angles, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. I have to really think about force in motion and like how I can control gravity and how I can even control it if I made something like a Plinko machine, which I actually have behind me. I feel like a mad scientist back here. But when I made this Plinko machine, I really had to think about like I had to angle this way and that way. Like when I did this way, like there's not enough friction. Oh, that time it actually worked. It's too would stop it if it's too far forward. The gravity doesn't work and the oh and my Plinko falls. So like learning about force and motion with your hands, any physical science like that is just a lot more fun. And to me, I think was it Tamara that said it? To me, it also makes the learning really sink in.
that's exactly what this slide is about. So, what is it? And then why does it work? And it's all about the power of movement. So, like when students are physically involved in a learning task, whether they're building a structure or designing a prototype or just manipulating materials with their hands or with their bodies, multiple pathways in their brains are activated. And that multisensory engagement strengthens their memory and deepens their comprehension. And it helps students to make connections they might miss otherwise. Our bodies and our brains are really deeply connected. And so for children, especially, movement while they're learning isn't just about burning off energy. It's actually fundamental to how they process information and they build understanding and how they add things to their memory. I have a 2-year-old. She is learning about numbers. She's really into numbers right now. And so I 3D printed her a little balance scale. So she's learning about numbers and what 2 looks like when it's marshmallows and 2 looks like when it's trucks. But she will put 2 of each on her little balance scale, and you can just see her little brain exploding because it is something about taking it off of paper and off of her hands and putting it onto that scale that just makes it so real for her. Getting her body involved and being able to move as she's learning, it makes the experience really different. Colleen and I are a really special brand of nerdy. And so we wanted to bring you some of the neuroscience behind what we're talking about. So this resource, the source is from Playposium. It's from a website all about playful pedagogy and neuroscience. It's linked in the source right down here. So if you are nerdy like us and this interests you, please look around this website. But we just had to share these facts. They're so cool. Playful activities impact the amygdala, a region associated with emotions, regulating students' emotions and reducing stress and anxiety. And so when students feel safe and engaged in the classroom while they're learning, they're more receptive to learning. And their amygdala is less likely to hinder the cognitive processes, which makes it easier and more fun for them to learn. And it's going to make it easier for them to remember as well. Colin, you want to do this next one?
Sure. Playful pedagogy triggers the release of neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, which enhance the encoding of information into long-term memory, which I like to point out is also what makes you happy. Serotonin and dopamine are things that make you feel good about things. So you're feeling happy and you're actually processing that information a little bit more than you could.
When students engage in games or interactive exercises, that prefrontal cortex is activated, and that fosters better executive functions and enhances student ability to plan, organize, and execute tasks. So obviously, as teachers, we are all about teaching the content and making sure that students are getting those skills, but we're also trying to turn students into successful humans. And part of being a successful human is developing and strengthening those executive functioning skills. So when I heard this, I was kind of like, oh, mic drop, there it is. When you are getting kids in these interactive activities, you're getting those executive functioning skills being strengthened. And all of this means that educational content presented in this playful manner is more likely to be retained. Kids are going to remember it. They're going to master those skills even easier. And they're going to remember it a long way down the road when they need to look back and remember what they've learned.
Yeah.
One more very nerdy slide. If you are talking about experiential learning, then one of the things that you might want to check out is Kolb's experiential learning cycle. Again, this is not something I'm an expert in, but the people who made this resource are, so feel free to check out this source. It is linked right there. But Kolb's experiential learning cycle tells us that it's not just about getting busy hands when you're doing experiential learning. That is a fantastic start, but experiential learning truly thrives when we guide students through this cycle. So you start with the concrete experience. They do something, like maybe they're building with Makedo, and then they move on to reflective observation. They think about what they did and what worked and what didn't. That moves them on to abstract conceptualization. They understand the why behind their observations. They start connecting it to bigger ideas, takes them into active experimentation. They plan how to try again, perhaps with new ideas or improvements, and move back through concrete experience. So this cycle is one of the things that we're going for when we're talking about hands-on experiential learning. And again, if you want to learn more, feel free to visit that source.
And I'm noticing that it reminds me a lot of the design cycle because the design cycle has brainstorming, it has reflecting, it has building, and then coming back and showing others and changing and adapting and kind of just going around and around in that same cycle. I really like that.
So before we jump into teaching with Makedo, what questions do you have about experiential learning and all of the nerdy goodness that we just delivered to you? Is there anything standing out in your mind like, I didn't know this, or oh, that's really interesting, or about that? We'd love to hear it. Oh, sorry. Someone is doing something very loud right outside of my window. So hopefully
We
you
can't
can't
hear
hear
it.
it. Okay, good, good. Well, in that case, nothing's happening and everything is very professional. Sounds sounds great. All right, we will keep moving, but we'll also keep an eye on the chat. So if you think of something, please feel free to send it. And we're going to talk to you a little bit about teaching with Makedo. And you might see how this connects before we even tie it together. But let's jump in. Go ahead, Colleen.
Oh, well, one thing we love about Makedo, and someone mentioned it earlier, it gives students agency because we're putting the students in the driver's seat. So our safe cardboard construction tools, you remember that word safe because they are actually safe to hand to our kids, even a kindergartner. They cannot hurt themselves or one another. Uh, they actually allow students to create without limits. In fact, they were made by our inventor, Paul, because he was making cardboard. His kids were like, Dad, make me a cardboard robot on the weekend. And he was like, you know what? I want my kids to be making these things. I don't want to make for them. I want them making them. And so that's why he invented this really cool saw. So it's a safe thing that allows them to be the driver.
As school librarians, Colleen and I have both worked with wide ranges of students all at a time and all on the same budget. So we love a tool that can be used with multiple grades for multiple subjects. So one of the things that drew us both to Makedo is the fact that it can be used with any grade and any subject. It really has limitless potential in education from kindergarten all the way up through seniors in high school. It's all about the kids that are using it and the teachers that are giving the assignments with it. It's also used beautifully in educational settings outside of a traditional classroom, museums, libraries, nonprofits, after school programs. Anything you want students building and creating can be done with Makedo.
And Sarah, while you have the face box mask up, I wanted to say that like it does look like a very primary school tool because it's yellow, I guess. But I gave these to my 16-year-old and her friends, and I challenged them to make these face box masks. And actually, I have some here. Uh, my daughter made this robot style mask, and then her friend made an amazing mask just really quick. I love this one just so fast. And within 2 hours, they had made all the pieces and parts that they could battle each other out with their amazing costumes on and like run around and play. So, like, even 16-year-olds can enjoy Make Do. It's the kids that like to drive and have those great ideas.
It's all about the challenges that you
Yeah.
give them, right? And the space
Yeah.
that you give them to create as well. So we do sometimes get written off as a tool that is for younger students. And while it can work beautifully for younger students, Colleen, that's a great reminder that older students also deserve to play and experiment and
Oh, yeah.
experience and get hands-on for sure. And they might not get it as much, but hopefully there's a teacher out there that's like, yeah, my juniors in high school would love this.
The funny thing is that sophomore who's now a junior that came over to do that actually asked to come over every week and play with cardboard. So
You're becoming that house in the neighborhood,
I
Colleen.
am that house. And Sarah said she's a project lead the way teacher and they make cardboard airplanes. So this would be a perfect tool to do that.
It's great. Real tools, really sustainable. Whether you are working with preschoolers or you are working with seniors in high school, no kid wants to be handed a pretend tool for you to pretend that it's real and that it's very powerful. Kids see right through that, and we all know that. So one of the things we love about Makedo is that while it is safe, it's also a real tool. And if any of you know Makedo, you know that one of the most important things about the brand, one of the first things we learned about Makedo when we joined the Makedo team is their dedication to sustainability and to taking care of the planet. So not only are Makedo real tools that really work, but it's a company that passionately supports sustainability. And one of the reasons that they created these tools is because they wanted to see cardboard staying out of landfills and being reused. And so cardboard, it's made to work with recycled materials like cardboard, and the tools are made to be used again and again and again.
You know what? I forgot to mention these screws are really strong. They're actually
Mm-hmm.
stronger than hot glue. and 100% safer than hot glue. So they're not just sustainable in that way, they're sustainable in that you're not using hot glue, you're not using tape. And when you take your cardboard apart, you can throw it in the recycling and it's all compostable. So I think that's also another really amazing thing about Make Do. Especially, I mean, these guys, like you said, you can reiterate, but also they're strong. Like Sarah and I built a whole archway at IdeaCon. So,
Mhm.
and it didn't fall.
This is something we always like to mention because when we're talking about hands-on learning or project-based learning, there are a lot of educators that really want to get into this kind of learning and feel like it's not possible because there are standards they have to meet, boxes they need to check, and things that they need to get done. And we completely understand. I am going to hand this over to Colleen as our standards expert, but we talk about how Make Do is outside of the box, but inside the standards. So tell us more about that, Colleen.
So every lesson plan that I'm developing is tied to standards around the world. So all that I do is going to be something that you can use in your classroom. So for example, if we're talking about experiential learning, I think we're going to talk about this lesson in a second anyway. One of my favorite ones I just did was animal adaptations. And that's where kids will learn about animal adaptations by actually building them out of cardboard and transforming another kid into an animal. But this is actually tied to all of our standards. So it's really cool. And I still think it's really also interesting to note that our country doesn't have design and technology standards, not globally, but like in the UK and in Australia and in Canada, they do. So maybe we need to get on that.
Not yet, right? Growth mindset.
We do have engineering standards, just not design standards.
Building with Make Do can allow you to think really, really, really big. Make Do is uniquely scalable. You can build tabletop projects, handheld projects, kid-sized creations, or entire worlds from cardboard. My first day of work, I showed up at IdeaCon to meet the Make Do team, and they said, "Okay, have fun building a 10-foot arch." And Colleen and I were like, and we did it. And it was an arch. Sarah saw it while we were there in Chicago. It was a massive arch that people could stand and walk under. We did not think that Make Do could hold it together. Wow, were we wrong? It was actually kind of tricky to take apart because these screws hold so well. So you can go really, really big with this tool with not a lot of tools. It's pretty fantastic. And finally, real world skills at work. Working with Make Do develops collaboration, critical thinking, communication while helping students to improve their planning, their problem solving, their perseverance. It's a little bit of engineering, it's civic planning, it's architecture, it's all of the different things. And and some tool safety as well. All of these STEAM skills that you want students to be working with come really naturally with Make Do. And we could talk about this all day, but I always, hearing from a teacher always means more to me than hearing from someone who works with the company. So I'll just leave these up here for a moment so you can read some real words from teachers about teaching with Make Do before we tie it all together. This is a great time if you have any questions or any thoughts to send them to the chat while we're reading these messages.
I forgot to mention that this was actually the part of the geometric headwear lesson that ties to the standards of teaching kids about shapes and shape identity.
Plus, you look so good, which is really
Plus,
the most important.
I look so great in this gigantic crown.
The standard is beautiful headwear, and if you learn about shapes, that's wonderful. All right, let's bring it all together. So we've talked about experiential learning. We've talked about learning with Make Do. And now we want to show you how easy it is to put those two things together. So when Colleen and I sat down to talk about how we could give kind of an overview to planning in this new way, if planning hands-on learning is new to you, we thought about breaking teaching into 3 different steps. The planning that comes before the teaching that happens during the actual lesson, and then reflection, which is your point of kind of assessment and tying it together with your students. So we're going to walk you through planning, teaching, and reflection for hands-on experiential learning. So starting with planning, you're going to set that foundation by thinking about what's the concept or skill you're teaching and what's the learning goal for your students. This is where all lesson plans start, not really different here. Then you consider your experience. How have you reached that goal in the past? Colleen was talking about animal adaptations. How have you helped students to learn about animal adaptations in the past? If you're anything like me, maybe it was through a research project, maybe it was through an essay, maybe it was through some like National Geographic or book research. And that's not super hands-on. My students liked it, they learned from it. But if I'm looking at this through a lens of hands-on learning, now I can get curious. How can I reach that goal in a hands-on way that gets students moving and gets their bodies involved? And that allows me to think really open-ended and flexible. Is there room in this plan for different paths? Can different students in my class have a different product while learning the same skills, or does everything have to look the same? This is where we really start to consider student voice and choice. Someone sent the word agency to the chat in the first 5 minutes, and I was like, ding, 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 because that's going to come up a lot. How and where can you give students agency? And then process over product. And I would break Colleen's heart if I talked about process over product, because this is one of her favorite things. So, Colleen.
Well, process over product is like one of the most important things. And that's really just teaching the kids that it's not about how beautiful your headwear is. In the end, it's about that process you took learning through it. So you really have to take time to build in for reflection and have students realize that they're going to reflect each step and they're going to reflect each day. And so maybe if they're making their cardboard creation of oh my gosh, I can't say crab claw to learn about adaptations and how they might use their crab claw as part of their exoskeleton that also is able to keep other things away from them, right? Because it's kind of scary, like, oh, I'm going to get you. Those are part of learning about process. How is that? How was building that helping you learn that adaptation? And there's a lot of time for reflection, and every lesson plan ends with journal reflection questions. It's up to you whether you use them or not. So.
Mm-hmm. And I want to make sure I
they're
give
there.
a little bit of space for the fact that process over product might be a mindset shift for your students, and it might be a mindset shift for you too. Sometimes the way that we teach is you are working on that essay and then I grade the essay at the end. You are studying this concept and then you take a test where there's not always space to think about process over product. So if this is a mindset shift for your students or for you, that's okay. And it doesn't have to be something that you do in every subject. It can be something you try with one lesson and see how you like it.
I can also say, just as a writing teacher, process. So you can move to the next one. Process over product is something that's really easy to grasp as a writing teacher because you're wanting them to learn the writing process. It's really not about that final draft. It's about them learning to draft, revise, and edit. And so making is the same way.
Mm-hmm. So you're starting with planning, asking some different questions, thinking outside of the box. And that brings us to teaching, which is where things start to look really different when you're working with hands-on learning. And the biggest one, and maybe the most challenging for some of the teachers in this session, are say yes to the mess. Take a deep breath. Things might get messy. It is all part of the project. Don't be like Colleen. Do not challenge your students to decorate cupcakes, I think was the story that she said. But it does get messy when you've got your hands, when students are moving and making and they're really involved in what they're doing. We talk in education a lot about being a sage on the stage or a guide on the side. And there is no right or wrong answer. There's times where sage on the stage is the practice you need, and there's times where guide on the side is what you want to bring into your classroom. And when we're thinking about hands-on experiential learning, we're thinking about stepping into the guide on the side role. How can you support students from behind the scenes? How can you put them in charge? And it's not you passing knowledge along to them, but it's them constructing the knowledge and maybe looking to you when they need support, which naturally brings us to the next one, which is meeting questions with questions, which drives students crazy, but keeps them working and supporting themselves. So if a student brings, oh, and I forgot to add that L, so it still says control. Pretend that says control, everybody. You know, we're saying yes to the mess here. So keeping students in control even when they come to you for help. So if a student comes to you and says, I've tried everything, it's broken, I can't do it. Instead of taking it from them and showing them what to do next or giving them kind of a lecture on the next 3 steps, you can say, what have you tried so far? What are you trying to make it do? And what can it do now? Well, that sounds really frustrating. Can you talk me through your plan? What other strategies can you try to get there?
I think that also the questions with questions and guide on the side is also could be a learning shift for teachers too, and for the kids to have to understand like, oh wait, you're going to make me really learn this and figure it out on my own. I did that with high school students. It's a little harder because they're so used to the sage on the stage. But I will say that I've had many high school students in that last reflection part say, you made me really do this. And at first I was mad, but actually by the end, I was really happy because I learned I could actually do something on my own and I could make a change. And so it's really important to give them that agency to learn it themselves. So if you see something that they're doing, like my ball where it's too flat, let them learn that it's needs to be undone and the cardboard needs to be folded and curvy. Let them learn that on their own. They'll learn it better. They'll synthesize the learning just a little bit more.
And if you've been interested in stepping into more of a guide on the side role and guiding with questions, but you haven't been sure how to do it, the great thing about a project like this, where they're working with Makedo, you can't possibly be the expert and answer the questions because you don't know the plan that's in their head. So you can tell them how you might finish the project. You can say, well, if this were mine, I might attach that here, or I might build that up and that out for better foundation. But you're not working with the master plan. And so you kind of have to ask questions. You can't fix it for them. It's their design. So if it's something you've been having a hard time with, taking it so you can't possibly do it, some ways makes it a little harder, but in some ways makes it a little easier. And finally, while you're teaching, you can assess as you go. When students are building and working, it can be really easy to walk around and find out who's rolling along and who needs extra support. I like to take a list of my students, just my students' names, and I can take notes as I go. And then when class is over, I can be like, oh, I need to remember next week. Colleen was really struggling with building that section that wanted to go up. It kept falling over. I'm going to visit with her in the first 5 minutes to make sure she has the support that she needs. Or I'm going to make sure Colleen sits next to Sarah because Sarah really got that like building up part. And so they can rely on each other, and Colleen will get the supports that she needs without feeling that the teacher's taking over. So assessing as you go, when you can see the projects coming together, not actually as hard as it sounds. Any questions on the planning and teaching steps before we move on to reflection? You can use the chat, and you can also feel free to unmute yourself. We like to hear your voices. You will not scare us.
We have about 10 minutes, Sarah.
Okay. Well, in that case, I will keep going.
I was looking for the nonverbal. I was supposed to be able to give you nonverbal feedback. I was trying to find the hurry up button.
I would have missed you anyway. I'm too excited about what I'm talking about. All right, let's talk about reflection then. And this is teacher reflection and student reflection and kind of assessment all rolled into one. One of the best things about these kinds of hands-on making experiences is that they lead themselves really naturally to authentic evaluation experiences. Think about how your students can share their knowledge, test their creations, share their creations, and show off what they've learned in a way that's meaningful to them. And we're going to see that in action in some real lesson plans in just a couple of minutes. Students reflect in different ways. Some students are going to give you absolutely phenomenal, thoughtful feedback in writing. Some are really going to shine in a group discussion. Some are going to want to draw their ideas. Some are going to come to you a week later and say, I had a dream about this and I want you to know. All students kind of reflect in different ways. So offering a written reflection option and a group discussion option can give two different styles of learners and processors a chance to shine and share their feedback with you. And finally, I
was going to say, I also really love the idea of sharing. I talked about this before too, but with Flipgrid, that's now defunct, you can now do video in Padlet. So Padlet would give them the option to write or record a video and still also be a group option. So I like that. And I think we also talked before when we were doing that webinar with another group about using Book Creator. They could actually put pictures of their things and the reflections all in something like Book Creator. So just think of those ways to add that reflection in with something techy.
And one thing I love to do as an etiquette, and so many teachers do this, I learned this from a different webinar did not start with me, is I will give students the added question of, I wish my teacher knew, and just leave it open. And I learned some really valuable things about the lesson, about the experience, about the class, about the tools, about my teaching, just by handing that kind of open-ended exit slip to students. So that's something that I like to add to my reflection. It almost always makes the unit better the next time I teach it, because students say something that they were maybe afraid to say to my face, but they feel more confident handing to me or typing into a form when they know they're about to walk out of the room. And I will say that's a lot of power to give a student. I've never received a hurtful comment in I wish my teacher knew. There's something about the fact that you're taking the time to ask. They take that responsibility very seriously. Okay, we're going to give you some real examples that you can really use, and we are going to speed through them, and you can come back and visit them if you are interested. The link to these slides will go out in your email. So we're going to start with that animal adaptations unit that Colleen was talking about. Colleen, you want to talk us through the learning objectives and the challenge really quickly?
Yeah. So for the animal adaptations lesson, you're actually challenging students to transform a friend into an animal with that adaptation that you've learned. So maybe it's learning about giraffes having a long neck. Maybe it's learning about crabs having claws. Maybe it's learning about snakes slithering through sand. So all of it are going to they actually are still going to have that research component. And then they're going to make a cardboard costume with Makedo to show that animal adaptation. And I really love the idea of every kid making it and then having an animal adaptation parade. I just think that sounds really adorable. And I'm hoping next year that I can walk to the school down the street and perform this lesson so that I can see the animals all on parade. And I actually think I don't remember if I said this or not, but this is one of those things where I've seen a lot of animal adaptation lessons, and they'll like have kids make a poster board or have kids actually make it on a cereal box. And while those ideas are cool, like how much cooler is it to learn it the hands-on way where you actually make the adaptation example? And we actually have a little crabby guy there on there. And I love this lion.
And the students in these pictures are younger, but having worked with a lot of 8th graders and older students before, nothing makes an 8th grader or a high schooler happier than saying, you're about to teach 1st graders about animal adaptations.
Oh,
So
yeah.
what would a 1st grader like? It gives them permission to make a really silly hermit crab costume that they might not feel comfortable doing if it was just for themselves, because they're very serious and grown up. But if
Love that
it is
idea.
for younger students, their playful and creative side can come out. History in the making is a lesson that I love. Our learning objectives, we're challenging students to reflect on historical figures that have had an impact on their lives or that they're really passionate about. They're going to explore the concept of identity by creating a cardboard costume or prop that represents the impact that person has had on their life. So you're bringing some identity and some of the something that feels important to the student into the lesson as well. And then they're also developing communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creative thinking skills as they work as a group to solve a challenge. So the challenge itself is to research the past, to learn about a style of armor, historical dress, or a historical figure, and then design a cardboard costume to transform a classmate into someone from another time. Again, these pictures happen to feature younger children because they were what were available on our hub, but please use these with your older students and then share the photos with us so we can feature some older students in our next webinar. We have some ideas for authentic assessment and for showcasing student learning in there as well. Let's go through one more.
Oh, and then this one is also one of my favorite, Cardboard Arcade. Who doesn't love Kane's Arcade? This lesson also focuses on force and motion and thinking about gravity and engineering. And you're making engineering games that move. So you can create a cardboard style game to engage and challenge your peers. And I have had high school students make cardboard games and they love it. Loved it. Especially if other kids can come through and play their games. So this is one of those things where you think it might only be for younger kids, but everybody's going to love it. And it's going to cover some really good physical science. So they can investigate how pushes and pulls can start, stop, or change the direction of an object's motion. And they can also figure out what they're going to do when they are challenged and they fail at something and have to problem solve. So this uses the design process to design a fun yet tricky arcade style game out of cardboard. And like I said, the best way to end this is obviously to have a school-wide cardboard arcade so everybody can play those games. I still remember my freshmen making like those basketball style games. They made basketball and they made a little foosball out of a shoebox and like they just like they were like, I'm the best at this. I'm the best at this, like kept trying to they're so funny. I miss those kids. All right. We're
Hopefully,
at the question
yeah,
of the
hopefully there's an
day.
idea percolating in your brain right now. So if you feel like sharing with the chat, we would love to know which topic or standard or lesson you're dreaming about reimagining with hands-on experiential learning. So maybe there's a lesson that you're like, I know this is a cool concept. My kids are always so bored by it. Or like, this is the hardest thing for me to teach every year. And I wonder whether this would make it easier. Or I love teaching this and I think this could make teaching it even better. So if you're thinking about a topic or standard or lesson that you're really dreaming about reimagining with hands-on experiential learning, please let us know in the chat. And we will stay for a few minutes to
Oh
hear
my
those
gosh.
chat answers. But before, I know some of you will need to go.
I forgot to show my beautiful purse. I was trying to have a prop like every time I talked and I forgot. Yes, please visit our resource hub. The Make Do Hub is where all of the beautiful things live. And I'm the one in charge of making the lesson plans grow. So right now there are some, but there will be very many in just a very short time. We've got design challenges. We have ideas for cardboard and tech. We have step-by-step guides on how to make things. You can go to the education side and see the lesson plans. You can also go to the at-home side and see some of the crazy, amazing things that people have made. My actual purse was inspired by something I saw at the at-home hub, like because this is one piece of cardboard, and I just think that's really cool. So you can find all kinds of great things to do there. And again, tell us what you want to see. I think the next slide might have our contact info, and
Yes,
please reach out. Say, hey, I've been thinking about doing a lesson plan on, aerospace dynamics. How would you do that? I don't know. I just made something up.
And before I move to the next slide, I want to
Yeah.
make sure you know this is all free.
Yes.
It's free if you buy. It's free if you don't buy. Please use these resources. We just love teachers and want to help you. So if you use Makedo, fantastic. If you don't, you're still fantastic. Please access our hub and use our resources.
I mean,
If you want to contact us, here you go. Sorry, Colleen.
No, that's okay. I'm good. I think.
Skipping ahead, we do have the take-home folder here with lots of tips and tricks about cutting, folding, connecting. These are for you to access on your own time if you're interested. Tips and tricks to level up and build big. Tips and tricks for incorporating 3D parts if 3D printing is part of your curriculum. Preparing your space, preparing your students. All info we wanted you to have, but we knew we wouldn't have time for because we talked for too long. So that is here in the slides if you want to revisit it later. And now, if you're still here, congratulations, you hung on. And we are ready to ask questions. But we will probably end the recording before we take questions. So if you're watching on the recording, thank you so much for being here. Please feel free to reach out with questions. We loved connecting with you. And we want to see what you create with Makedo, so please don't be a stranger.